Good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Gersnet Podcast, the independent Rangers podcast by fans for fans, where all the content is absolutely free, coming to you in association with Forest Precision Engineering. I'm your host tonight, Brian Archer, and as always, we'd encourage you to get onto the Gersnet website and check out our forums for all your latest Rangers news and discussion. We're live tonight on the YouTube channel, and we would ask that you continue to share the pod on social media, spread the word, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Before I introduce my guest for tonight, I need to give another mention to our partners over at Forest Precision Engineering. They're a Glasgow-based engineering company who have been a big commercial supporter of Rangers for a number of years, and we're delighted to have them supporting the pod. If you want more information about them, please visit their website at www.forestprecisioneng.com. They also have a stunning executive lounge in the Ibrox main stand, and for more information on that, email the club at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Right, now to bring in my guest, to join me tonight is David Fraser. David, how are you doing?
Evening, Brian. Not bad, thanks. Evening to the listeners. You get to chew the cud about all things Rangers.
Yeah, looking forward to it. We'll start by looking back at Wednesday night against Livingston. I just kind of wanted your take on the performance overall. For me, it was a marked improvement. On Sunday, I thought we played the ball much quicker in the opening stages. I thought we showed a bit more intent up front. There seemed to be a bit more fluency in attack. It was far from perfect, I'll be honest. But for you, was it a step in the right direction?
Yeah, like yourself, Brian, it was definitely a step in the right direction. I echo your points there about the speed, the increase in the tempo. Seemed to be a bit more directness about the play, and it obviously helps when you score quite early on, but they were comfortable. I think it seems, in the aftermath of the game, people have been talking about how poor Livingston were. I think you've got to give credit to the Rangers side insofar as they made Livingston look decidedly ordinary. And what was a build as beforehand as potentially being a tricky cup tie turned out to be, if not a walk in the park, it was certainly one that was, well within the compass of the players on the pitch.
Yeah, I thought it was, as I say, much improved from Sunday. Still a long way to go. You can see there's still improvements to be made. You can see we're still trying to find the kind of perfect balance up front in terms of Michael Beale's done a lot of talking about still trying to find those relationships up front, particularly in the attacking areas. Where do you stand on the kind of pressure around the manager recently? There's obviously been a lot of debate and speculation online since the Old Firm defeat around the manager's position. Do you think the kind of recent run of 4 wins and 4 clean sheets, does that do any for you to kind of quell that speculation and pressure on him?
Well, he's only doing what he can do. I mean, I was on the pod in the aftermath of the defeat against Celtic, and I'd said that same as I did man walking, primarily because I've got little faith in the team not dropping points before the next Old Firm game, and I stand by that. So I'm not going to be smart after the event with 2020 hindsight and make it as though I'm thoroughly on board with the Michael Beale project. Now, I'll caveat what I'm about to say with, I don't want any Rangers employee to fail in what they're doing. That goes without saying. But to get back to your question, he's doing what is required to quell that disquiet amongst the rank and file. So, 4th clean sheet in a row, taking baby steps. Obviously, the Motherwell game and the manner of how they played obviously set them back after what was a reasonable, better than reasonable result in Europe, given the injuries that we've suffered to the starting 11. So yeah, he did what was required. The team, turned in a handsome victory. 4-0 against a team that usually is well drilled and organised as a Davy Martindale Livingston side is. It's to be commended. It was a potentially tricky tie, and had Livingston maybe taken more of the impetus that they had for some chances. I seem to recall Stephen Kelly having a pop at goal, which wasn't that far away. In another day, he may well have gave Jack Butland something to think about. The players and the manager are doing what's required of them. Big test coming up tomorrow to see if that winning streak and keeping the clean sheet streak going, whether that can continue. And if he can continue that, allied to reasonable results in Europe, whereby it looks as though they're going to have European football after Christmas, then it's going to shut up guys like me. That I've been shouting to the rooftops. I mean, I'm not a social media guy, but people that see his tenure as being short-lived, continued performances and results like we've seen over the last few games will only go somewhere to cementing the fact that he's going to have a future as the Rangers manager.
I don't know about you, but I feel like he's still just one bad result away from another crisis, and again, people calling for him to be sacked. Is that just life as the Rangers manager, in terms of it's a high profile job, it's a massive pressure job, as we as fans are amongst the most demanding there is that just life as any Rangers manager, or do you think there is kind of particular scrutiny on Michael Beale just because there's a lot of fans that's potentially already made their mind up on him?
I see both sides of what you've mentioned there. I see both sides of the coin. I think most of the pressure's been invited upon him is purely down to the fact that there seems to be such a state of flux about the first 11 and the squad in general, where I think that maybe if, say for instance, there was a settled 11 and the fans could see what it was that he's trying to do, and it was almost like a definite plan, a definite style of play. I think if the fans would be more inclined to buy in and just say it's teething problems, I think the fact that it's been so disjointed looking in the early part of the season, and that's been continuing on, and there's a multitude of reasons why the fans might be questioning what's going on behind the scenes. I think that all feeds in and to the kind of overall feeling that it's maybe a bit of a rudderless ship. We've seen comments from umpteen fans online that he seems to throw mud at the wall and hope that something sticks. Does he? There's still a feeling that he possibly might have bought players that he's found out about in the times that he's had them in the door and working with them, that they're maybe not the players that he thought he was buying. All that stuff. There's so many things going on, Brian, that I think would maybe compound the pressure of the Rangers kitchen, if you like. The heat that is involved, naturally, and that you need to win. Now that you need to win. I would say with a bit of style now. Rangers, certainly under Steven Gerrard, there was a style that we wanted to try and inculcate through the club, and Michael Beale's been part of that. I mean, he came in saying that back to these kind of phrases that he's used about playing with the handbrake off. I mean, when you're talking like that, and then it seems that the handbrake is thoroughly stuck on in some respects going forward, then that's only going to feed into people, naturally being wary of progression, whether it be 4-0 results in the League Cup quarter final and 1-0 victories against decent opposition in Real Betis. So it's early days, Brian. I want him to do well. I don't want him to fail, but there's just that nagging doubt at the back of your mind that, like you said there, you think that potentially one bad result, the walls could come crashing in and about him again, potentially. So yeah, it's the pressures, as you well know, especially in Scottish football of late, and so far as you must win every game. The pressure to win every game is increased because of the relative weakness of the other sides. You kind of your capital clubs in Aberdeen aren't anywhere near as strong as they were maybe 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a unique pressure that probably most managers don't experience in terms of that need to win every week. Now, you mentioned some of the signings that Wheeler made, and I want to talk about some of the kind of individual performances from Wednesday night. The first player I want to talk about is not one that Michael Beale signed, but hopefully one that he'll get the best out of, and that's Ridvan Yilmaz. I thought he played really well. I thought the interesting thing for me is the difference between him and Barisic. I think Ridvan offers a bit more variety in terms of options down that left wing. Barisic, you kind of know what he's going to do when he gets the ball. He'll look up and he'll cross it. And don't get me wrong, he can put in a fantastic delivery. But I think Yilmaz has got a bit more variety to his play in terms of he can thread a pass, he can have a shot as we've seen, he can come inside. The disappointing thing is he does seem to be a bit injury prone. Hopefully it is only cramp. I think Michael Beale would say it was only cramp, and I think the noises about the press conference today was that he should be okay for the weekend. Are you hopeful that goal will give him the kind of start, and that'll be the kind of start of a run of games for him?
I would like to think so. I mean, it was a tremendous goal first and foremost. He's a different type of back from Borna Barisic in some respects. I think a lot of the glaring differences between the two are down to the fact that time's catching up with Borna. He plays the percentages. A lot of criticism that's levelled against him when we've got the ball is that he always likes to turn inside, but I think he plays the percentages. Borna Barisic, he always wants to keep the ball, and if he knows that he's not got the blinding burst of pace that he maybe possessed when he arrived at Ibrox at first, and he plays within himself. Ridvan, obviously a younger lad, has got boundless amounts of energy, looks to be on the front foot and wants to carry the ball and looking to maybe bounce off a midfielder as opposed to breaking beyond and curling a ball into the box the way Barisic does, on an overlap. So, yeah, look, is he necessarily nailed down a claim to be the first choice left back? Ridvan, I'm not so sure. Obviously, he's come in previous games before and he's looked the part and then he's stalled. And then maybe the manager's unsure about him as to whether he would factor into his first choice 11 in any given time, given that if he's got a full squad to pick from. The fact that he left him at the European squad, I would say, maybe backs up that assertion. Although, there's obviously there's quotas to fulfil within the UEFA squads. But he scored an excellent goal. Hopefully, he's done his confidence a world of good, and we'll see whether there is a proper battle between two players to actually nail down a place in the side. I think Barisic, to come to his defence, has maybe upped his game in terms of his levels of consistency, probably because he's got one of the first times ever. Get competition for his place, and you might say, Calvin Bassey. It's direct competition to his place, and he did. And Bassey obviously supplanted him under Giovanni Van Bronckhorst. I think it's early days in terms of whether Ridvan can actually be the number one left back, because he's not really been tested, and if he can block crosses coming into the box, that is arguably one of Borna's Achilles heel in terms of his skill set. Then that may well further his cause to be regarded as the number one left back going forward. But I would say I think that the manager will stick with the tried and tested back line.
It'll be an interesting battle between the two of them, and it'll be interesting to see once we kind of see Ridvan get tested a bit more defensively. I'm not sure we've seen him really tested defensively, so that'll be interesting to see how he handles that. Again, all that sort of caveated with if he can stay fit. Hopefully he can and gets a run of games, and then we can really kind of judge, both of them and see which one comes out on top. Another player that is frustrated fans since he's arrived is Abdullah Sima. Scored a cracking goal against PSV in the home leg. He's now shown for me in the last couple of games that he can really contribute in those forward areas. I'm starting to see kind of that he's capable of scoring goals. I like how, even although his game's mostly about pace, he's capable of playing against those teams that sit deep. Normally when we have players that have just got raw pace, they struggle against teams like Livingston because there's not a lot of pace to run in behind. But he seems to be able to handle that, and he seems to be able to find ways of impacting games. Has he impressed you so far?
Well, he's willing. He's willing. He's chipped in. You rightly mentioned it. He's chipped in with some goals, and I think that's, when new players come to clubs, especially forwards, if you chip in with a couple of goals early, that buys you a bit of time in terms of maybe fitting in. What we've seen him so far, he can be a bit hit and miss in terms of his control. He's willing. He's definitely willing. He's willing to do the hard yards. He seems to be fairly adaptable in terms of where he can fit in that front three. So these are all strings to his bow. Obviously, with the injury issues that we've got at the minute, he seems to have, he's got a good chance of featuring in the starting lineup going forward, certainly in the short term. So, yeah, he's coming on to a game. He's having an impact. So that's, the manager can't ask any more of him, really, Brian. I think when the signings were made, albeit he's a loan signing during the summer, I don't think there were too many fans expecting these players to be pulling up trees, certainly early on. So I think Abdallah is doing well. He's heading in the right direction. I'd like to see his touch improving, but as his confidence grows, I think he likes it. Judging by how he responded to the second goal that he was involved in Wednesday night there, I think he enjoys being here. So that's a good start for 10 in terms of being happy at work. And you can't downplay the importance of that. Being happy in your work is an important thing to fulfilling your potential. So there's that going in his favour. And as long as he keeps having a positive impact, allied to chipping in goals, then yeah, onwards and upwards for Abdallah.
Another interesting player for me that's came back into the side of late is Ben Davies. Now, this was a player that, if you kind of believe the reports in the media, we were actively trying to offload in the summer. But he seems to have came back in. For me, he's been pretty solid, and he seems to have displaced John Souttar, which a lot of people were a fan of. And to be honest, I'm a fan of Souttar as well. And I'm surprised Davies has sort of come in and displaced him. But do you think he's now cemented that place alongside Goldson for you?
Difficult to say. I think Ben has come in and performed reasonably well since he's come in. He's looked quite solid. I think he's looked more comfortable in what's been expected of him. So that's a positive. I've seen some people saying he looks a wee bit more aggressive. I'd be open to debating that one. Is he good enough to be a long-term first pick Rangers centre half? I've got my doubts still. I think he's a reasonable player. I think has he maybe reached his peak? That's in terms of what he can bring. There's no two ways about it. He offers more balance with that centre half partnership, playing alongside Connor Goldson than John Souttar does. I think that's it's fairly obvious. Souttar, would prefer to play on the right side of the centre half pairing. I think, judging by some of his gesticulations, he sees himself as the organiser at the back, and you can't have too many chiefs and not enough Indians, to use an old cliche. So I don't think Connor Goldson is never ever not going to be the number one centre half unless they sign a proper bona fide top class defender who would supplant him in terms of the seniority in the partnership. So Ben, I think went on record last season is saying he's quite glad to be guided by Connor. So and his record when they've been playing alongside each other has been reasonable. So look, Ben's done enough in the games that he's played recently where he would justify his first pick over John Souttar. I don't think you have too many fans arguing a toss with you on that one, Brian.
Yeah, and I like the balance he gives, just having that left footer on that side. And I think it actually helps Dioma's at left back, having the left footer on his side as well. The next two players I'm going to sort of lump together because they're both strikers. Firstly, Kamal Roof. I think he's been bright since he came back, but picked up yet again another injury. Are we just at the point with Roof where we just need to consider anything we get out of him in terms of game time and contribution this season is a bit of a bonus? And secondly, Cyril Dessers came on at half time on Wednesday. He seemed to struggle again. He just seems to be struggling within his game just now, just to get that confidence and that, I don't really know, that understanding with his teammates a bit seems to be struggling. Is he a bit of a concern for you going forward, given that he's almost their only fit striker at the minute?
I'll take Cyril first. Right, I'm, there's times I watch games and I think to myself, is there maybe something there that the manager can cling to, or we as fans can cling to? And there's other times I come away and go, I don't think there's too much there. What I would say in Cyril's defence is the service he's had up to now has been, pretty lame. So, it's hard enough as a new player coming to a new club, a new league, a new country, etc., etc. And not really, if you're the type of player that relies on your teammates to help you, your job's made doubly hard almost. Having said that, I think of all the kind of skill sets of a centre forward, I look at him, I think he's two-sided, he's two-footed, so he's reasonably comfortable on both sides, although you wouldn't say he's particularly strong on his left-hand side. I'll sound negative here, but I make no apologies for it, because the guy, even allowing for the fact he's not had, he's not the greatest amount of help from his teammates, and that may well be a byproduct of the system more than any shortfall in his teammates' behalf. Number one, he's not very fast. He gets caught offside regularly, and I put that down to his lack of pace. He doesn't look fit either. He obviously he's a patchy pre-season, if at all, so that wouldn't help him. But we're approaching 8, 9, 10 weeks into the season, getting close to that point. That ring rustiness should be starting to iron itself out. Harder to do that when you're not playing a lot of minutes if you're in and out the side, granted, in his defence. But he doesn't look particularly good with his back to goal. Doesn't look particularly good holding the ball up. For his size, he doesn't look particularly good in the air. He doesn't look that particularly good shooting with either foot. So, there's times I watch him and I'm struggling to think what the manager sees in him or has seen in him. Now, whether he looked half decent for Cremonese against, you would assume, being Italy, a better standard of defender per se than most of the Scottish Premier League sides. Maybe he thought that it was just a case of he would translate to being better against just perceived weaker opposition. It's not transpired to it's not turned out that way so far. So look, I think there's more to come from him. I don't think he's as bad as a lot of people make out. But when you see the goals that has left the squad, and then the Antonio Cholak provided before he kind of fell out the side on the back of an injury, and the fact that these goals aren't being replaced by the likes of a new sign, especially for it wasn't as if he was a Bosman or anything. The Rangers paid money for him, so you can argue the toss about whether it's decent money or whether it's relative washers in the grand scheme. But there doesn't seem to be too much return. Does the system need tweaked in order to get more out of Cyril? That's open to debate. Kamal Roof, Michael has confirmed today in his press conference that he's on a scan, or he's having a scan that he's never divulged in with regards to what the prognosis would be or what they're expecting to get back from that scan. Kamar, good player, has tried to fulfil that lone striker role which, to hark back to Cyril, he doesn't look particularly good at performing that role. Camar's tried that. The tactics are shelling long balls up to a guy of 5'9" to try and hold off defenders and play teammates in that are maybe struggling for a bit of confidence. Maybe it looks as though you're not getting the best out of Camar. I would echo what you say, Brian. If he's under contract, I know there's been murmurs about it possibly been an extension being in the offing. But if we're only going to get pockets of games out of him and we can't be relied upon, we're in such a I was going to use a word there, state. I'll not use it, but we're in such a predicament there, where we need our best players on the pitch, especially when you're trying to gel a new side together going forward. And the fact that Camar's basically unreliable in terms of availability is only obviously highlights how good he can be when he pops up with goals like he did at Victoria Park, and highlights his absence when he's not on the side.
Yeah, I think it's a real shame for Roof. I'm sure nobody's more disappointed in him that he's picked up another injury. And one thing I wanted to come on to before we start to discuss tomorrow's game was I read online today that out of all the weekend's games in the SPFL, Sky haven't chosen any to broadcast live on TV. Now, for a TV deal that we're told, was going to benefit all the clubs and how great it was, Neil Doncaster sort of said how we should be thankful to Sky and things like that. Surely this just again shows the kind of poor governance at the top of our game that, we've got a weekend where Rangers play Aberdeen, Celtic play Motherwell, you've got some other interesting fixtures in the league, but yeah, our main broadcaster has decided not to show any of them live.
Yeah, it's crazy on the surface of it. I mean, I don't know if there's any contractual obligations that the SPFL have to fulfil, which would maybe explain away the fact that there's no live games this weekend. But yeah, I totally concur with you. Scottish football as a product, I think is definitely undersold, and when you have decent fixtures on the fixture card and they're deemed not to whet the appetite of broadcasters, assuming that there's no contractual barrier to showing some of those games, then you've got to question whether us as supporters and the health of the overall health of the game, whether we're getting value for money with these contracts with the current broadcaster.
Yeah, I definitely think you can make the case that as supporters we're not getting value for money. I think it was last season as well, there was at least one Edinburgh derby that wasn't televised, and I think it's going to be the same again this season. And for me, that's crazy in itself. That's our second most high profile fixture, and Sky deciding not to televise it, I think again just shows what a kind of poor deal that we've got when you compare it to other leagues around Europe. Leagues that traditionally maybe weren't seen as big as ourselves in terms of Scandinavian leagues. Dutch league, they seem to be getting better deals from their partners, seem to be getting more money. Again, it just goes to show how poor it's been from those at the top of our game to negotiate this deal. Yeah,
obviously there's other factors come in. I mean, I know some of the other leagues that you mentioned there, their deals are structured completely differently insofar as every game is live. For every side, so every game in the season is live. So that obviously skews the picture slightly, but there's no two ways about it. I mean, I'll repeat what I said earlier. Scottish football is undersold, and that's even allowing for the fact that maybe the product on the pitch, when you look at certain stadia, when it's some games, don't televisually look that great. When you talk about temporary stands and some of the smaller clubs who do no fault of their own, it's obviously a vicious circle. These sides are not going to speculate in terms of capital expenditure for their facilities when they can't have any realistic way of paying off that outlay. So, yeah, having said that, there's still enough in Scottish football to suggest that it can be marketed better. If they're going to bed with certain broadcasters, there's no two ways that any league. I mean, Sky could have all the major leagues available to them much the way that they did several years ago when they covered La Liga. That was marketed and covered to such a degree that it was never ever going to be seen as a threat to their primary product, which is the English Premier League. So as long as we're in bed with a broadcaster that champions the English League, then we'll always be a poor relation by comparison.
It's a sad state of affairs, but I guess we've got the deal that we've got, and we just need to live with it, unfortunately. Right, on to the weekend's game. Obviously, Aberdeen come to Ibrox. We know that they're going to up their game. They've not been in the best of form this year. I think there were a couple of decent results the last couple of games, but prior to that, they weren't in the best of form. But we know that they're going to come and raise their game at Ibrox. They always do. For ourselves, surely this is just a case of us trying to build on that tempo that we showed for spells the other night, that creativity, and again, just trying to make those steps towards getting to somewhere in terms of performance where Michael Beale wants to see his team.
Yeah, I think that tomorrow's fixture represents an ideal opportunity for the Rangers side to show progression to everyone. To first of all their opponents on the pitch in Aberdeen, the fans sitting at the stadium, and the wider footballing public as to what direction of travel Rangers are going in. It's obviously been a bit of a stop-start season, stuttering in some respects. When they look to have turned the corner after the opening day defeat against Kilmarnock, and then chipping away a glorious opportunity to pull level with. To beat Celtic and establish a head of steam. So tomorrow represents a decent opportunity to show what Rangers are all about, and build upon that kind of base that they've gave themselves on Wednesday night. Now, obviously, last week the criticism was that for last weekend's game that they didn't build upon the feel-good factor of turning over Betis. So now let's hope that they don't make that same mistake. And obviously we fully expect the Aberdeen side not to be anywhere near as passive as Livingston were. As you rightly say, their early season league form has been pitiful. So they've got something to play for by the fact that they always raise their game against us in any fixture. We're obviously their cup final. That goes without saying. So that then, to my mind anyway, that then shifts a bit of focus onto, I would say, the middle of the park tomorrow, and so far as how they're going to combat their players that are up for. I mean, Shinnie and McGrath are decent players, and then you've got, I think, Leighton Clarkson will probably be playing as well. I'm assuming he'll be fit. So Aberdeen have got some decent operators in the middle of the park, and I think I'd like to see, assuming that the same personnel might be there or thereabouts in terms of the team selections, i.e. Jose Cifuentes and John Lundstrom, Ryan Jack, that these guys, certainly Cifuentes, looks to kind of up his game and start honing that match sharpness, because it looked reasonable the other night. I've been underwhelmed by his contribution. I'm not taken in by his pass completion rate that a lot of fans seem to be pointing towards. I think I'd like to think of a far more to come from. Whether how the manager's deploying him in his role may well be hindering him, I don't know. But tomorrow's game, I'd imagine that the engine room will be lively, to say the least. So it'll be a good barometer to see how far we're coming, or how far we may well come with a view to obviously Aris Limassol next week and then the trip to Greenhill Road the following weekend. So all to play for, Brian.
Yeah, definitely. In terms of personnel, you spoke about it there. Is it becoming a concern for you? These injuries seem to be mounting up, and do you think at some point this could catch up on us? And do you think this weekend could potentially be that point? Again, we've got, Roof's out, as we spoke about earlier. Matondo is out. We've got, a massive injury list at the minute. Is that worrying you that at some point that's going to catch up on us?
Undoubtedly. I mean, look, from the kick-off this season, I was on holiday. I was on holiday in the first league game of the season. Although I did manage to catch it online. So my first game of the season was the Champions League qualifier against Servette, and I thought the side looked lethargic. I don't think they looked fit. I still don't think that they look particularly fit. Now, whether their players carrying injuries and that would explain away that this kind of lethargy, I don't know, but it could well be that the training regime might not be up to snuff and the overall fitness levels. So if that is a pointer to why the treatment table is starting to fill up, then that's going to feed into the disquiet amongst the rank and file about the management team. So, no, like taking it in isolation, obviously the few players that you've got to pick from, especially from a creative perspective, then you're then relying on the likes of players that we maybe brought in initially and didn't expect a heck of a lot of, per se, in the early part of the season, like Abdallah Sima, maybe a lone player coming in to augment the squad and be used sparingly. Because with the best one in the world, I wouldn't imagine that Michael would want to develop another club's player unless there's something contractual whereby they're more or less, a try before you buy type situation, which has not been divulged to the public in the same way that maybe Malik Tillman or James Sands' situations were. So, it focuses the mind and the players that are maybe struggling for form and maybe settling into the system, whatever reason, it's going to place more exacting pressure upon their shoulders, and more than likely, it's going to add additional pressure and weight to the shoulders of the likes of James Tavernier, who is still performing the role of being the main driver of the team going forward. And so these injuries are unhelpful for everyone. The management, especially the players themselves, obviously first and foremost, and us as fans, and trying to get a feel for whether the season's going to be a bright one or whether it's going to be a mediocre one.
Yeah, we definitely need to try and get those players back as soon as we can. But before we finish up, David, I'm going to ask you for a score prediction.
Can I not just get away with saying a fancy Rangers victory, Brian?
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take any victory. Victory, however we get it. I'll take a 1-0 win in the 96th minute if it comes to it.
I think if you'd asked me that a week and a bit ago, I would have possibly said that Aberdeen would score. I think the Rangers backline have shown enough in the recent games that they can maybe possibly shut the door on the Aberdeen front line, but they've got decent players going forward. Philip Duke and Bojan Majovski, they're decent players, and if they get reasonable service, and we allow them their midfield to give them decent service, then they're players that can hurt you. I cast my mind back to a game at Ibrox recently where Duke could have easily scored a couple of goals. I mean, I remember him going through and goal and McGregor and fluffing his lines, and it could have been a far different game. So these players have shown in the past that they're more than capable. It's whether we impose ourselves on Aberdeen, and I'd like to think that the fans will get behind the team seriously tomorrow, because it's a game that's always been a tasty one on the calendar. So let's hope that the players rise to the occasion and secure the 3 points.
Yeah, I'll take any win as long as we bring the 3 points back. Any win will do for me. Right, I think we'll call it time there. All that's left for me to do is thank my guest, David. Thank you as always.
No problem, Brian. Cheers.
As well as being live tonight, the show will be available on all podcasting platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Acast, Stitcher, and we would ask that you leave a rating on your preferred podcasting app. The podcast will be back on Sunday evening to look back on the weekend's match. Until next time, guys, bye for now.